Good evening, Professor Toulaev. I'm very honored to have you here in my program. At least it is in a series of Europe between Islamization and Americanization. This is the fourth and the last section of it. And
good evening, Mr. Alfred Vierling. I'm very glad to meet you.
Thank you. I have read your journal and your site about the project of Athene, and I hope you allow me to ask some questions about it.
Yes, of course. I will answer your questions with pleasure.
Yeah. So I'd like to start with the demographic situation in Europe, which is quite catastrophic, because in about 2050. The people of European origin will be close to extinction due to the very low fertility rate we have. That is about 1.57, while the replacement fertility should be 2.1, and that causes a problem. It is the same in Russia as in the European Union. And then we have you as well as us, already some 25 million Muslim people with higher fertility rates. What is your thought about all this?
Of course, we know these figures. This is a very dangerous tendency to the European community and to the European people in general. So we should think how to correct the diplomacy and to cooperate with people of the white world, because if we don't resolve our inner problems, we have more economic and political difficulties.
Yeah, because the strange thing is that nowadays the European Union is even planning to have an additional immigration of about 25 million people, because they say you don't make enough babies, so we have to replace them by immigrants from Africa.
Of course.
What is Russia doing? Are you trying to diminish the immigration, non-European immigration? Is that true?
The state policy is that the government tried to limit the illegal immigration. But indeed, it is still very high, and the problem is to promote fertility, to promote family qualities, to promote inner security and national culture.
Yes.
So this is the way.
And is it true that your government is giving a fee, a subsidy for each child? Say like 5,000 euro for each second and third child? Is that true?
Well, there is a fee, but not so high. I don't think that 5 euro have a mother with 2 or 3 children. Maybe 1 or 2,000 euro, maybe.
All right.
But you should check it out.
That's about like in Germany and France. So.
But anyway, this is a moral support. This is important.
This is important as a sign, as a gesture.
Of course, we should help families, mothers and sisters.
Or is this money also available to non-European families then?
It doesn't matter, because Russian government, the government of the Russian Federation, helps any family which are citizen in our federation.
Yes,
yes. But 80% of the populations are Russians.
Still, you're lucky.
This is not, yes, but we are not a nationalist in the with the limits.
No, I understand. You are the writer of a book that is the the right struggle in Russia. What did you write in that book?
Yeah, this is a very important publication for me. It is called White Struggle in Russia in the 20th century. The idea was to show our partners in Europe and the white world that we Russians have common roots and culture qualities with the Europeans. We have Aryan, Slavic roots and even Nordic roots. So Russian culture is Christian, and we even have racial movement. So we should think how to understand one to another.
Yes, because that's very important to hear. Because during the, say, the time of Soviet Union and NATO, the propaganda in our place was Russians are unreliable, Asian, something.
Exactly.
And you tell us we are just brothers.
Yes, we're just brothers. You know, when I was educated in the Soviet Union, and when I went out of the Soviet Union, they thought that I'm a communist. I never was communist. So Russians are not communists.
No, by nature.
Never. Even now there are communists in Russia, but this is a little minority.
Yeah.
So we are Europeans with very strong and old roots, and we have many things in common with the Europeans.
So at least you agree with me that Russian can function like a reservoir in hinterland, an inspiration for the European people, also within European Union, because we are dwindling away. We are disappearing in a way. We should hold together, isn't it?
And another important point of this book, I have published my articles in English, in German, in French, and in Spanish, because my dissertation, my scientific work was dedicated to Russian-Spanish relations. Now Spain is a part of Western Europe.
Yes.
But historically, Spain was a kind of independent culture, as well as Russia. And now Russia is integrating into a white European civilization. And to my consideration, Spain and Russia are two wings of the European civilization as a whole.
Exactly.
So if we speak about you know what I mean. If we speak about the axis, European axis, it would not be only Berlin, Paris, and Moscow, but from Madrid to Vladivostok.
Yes, I
from
fully agree.
Exactly.
I fully agree. Because we are, that is one of the advantages of post-war Europe, that we should know now that we are brothers. We had 2 world wars fighting among brothers, and now we are disappearing. We should hold together. That is not the idea.
Thank you for these words, brothers, because as a scientist, I use this word scientifically, not only ethically.
Yes.
But it is a really truth that we are racial brothers.
Oh, I see. Now we have only a problem here, that the European Union, as you know, is not very independent. It is like infuriated to the USA.
Mm-hmm.
So you know, and we are very much more than you exposed to their individualistic way of life, and of hedonism, living just in the present, without any consciousness of our historical and cultural roots. So, and then we see that from there are some circles, some lobbies that try to weaken the Eurozone and Europe, because they are afraid of the old continent.
Of course.
Our culture is much
more profound than
yes,
this.
exactly. And now they promote multiculturalism, which is weakening us. And my question is now that we see in European Union that the people of European origin, they risk to be a minority in their own cities.
Yes.
And it is only recently, due to nationalistic parties, that leaders like Sarkozy and Merkel and Cameron, they say, oh yeah, multiculturalism, maybe that was a failure, but nothing is going to change.
Nothing is changed.
Can Russia offer us an alternative to multiculturalism?
Of course, we know these sentences. We know that presidents of the European states criticized the multicultural politics. So this period of internationalism is over, because this is not the way for the future. Russia also has many minorities, national minorities. There are 180 ethnics.
180.
And 80 ethnics. And more than 80 of them have their a kind of autonomy. Cultural republic, or also region, and so on. So if we divide now our state for cultural minorities, you know what it is.
Yes.
So we should think of a common idea. Historically, the common idea is the state and the church. The church is orthodoxy in Russia. It is a Christianity, historical Christianity.
What does the Orthodox Church play a role in establishing family life and traditional values? What does it do?
Of course. So, the church is mostly positive as a state security phenomenon, as a cultural phenomenon, and religious, moral phenomenon. Of course, there are other religions, not only traditional. There are new religions or new pagan religions or pagan reconstructions. But anyway, we need some. This is not ideal. We need some constructive fundament, some moral politics. If we don't have any moral politics, this is very dangerous for the society.
Yes, exactly. We know that because we lack that in Europe, a common values, and because we are rather governed by bureaucrats and managers without a vision on society in the long run. And that's why I'm so eager to know what Russia has to tell, because you have an experience of centuries to deal with other peoples within your empire, and it must be a source of much wisdom there.
Of course, Russian Empire has the history of more than 7 centuries. At least, well, it can be discussed when it starts, but anyway, empire is a way of governing peoples and governing the state. So we need to cooperate inside some legal ways. If we just fight for separatism, for independencies, there will be ethnic chaos.
Yes, and you have tried also another way in the past. I remember certain Mr. Stalin, who was maybe very efficient in reducing the number of mosques, but also the churches, almost all religions. And I remember that in 1917 there were 23,000 mosques for 40 million Muslims, and when they ended the Soviet Union in 1989 there were only 300 mosques for 80 million Muslims. But that is not the way to do it. The Stalin way is not the most friendly solution to all this.
No, I appreciate Stalin as a strong figure, as a leader, but he made horror things in ideology and in politics. This is not my ideal at all. No, Stalin not. So we live in another era.
Yes, and we try to find peaceful ways to live with different peoples and religions. But on the other hand, there's geopolitics, and I'd like to ask you something about security and energy politics, because as you know, European does not have any army of itself. We all depend on the USA and NATO, and we see that sometimes they go as far as to manipulate us to make so-called revolutions in your neighbor countries or the former republics of Soviet Union, and so like in Ukraine, in Georgia, in Georgia, and so on. Is this idea of at the time of Mr. Gorbachev and Albert putting this idea of a common European security pact, a treaty that is now forgotten, how you look to that?
Oh, very important questions you have posted. First, of course, security is important in every field, not only in energy. We can promote energy security in the northern part of Europe, in the middle part, gas and petrol. Considering so-called soft revolutions, this is the problem of local power. People who has some influence in the local centers, they would like to get more money and more independence. For example, they want to control tourist business, narco traffic, I don't know.
It is a kind of separatism.
Separatism, yes. So this is the inner problem of the big state, or the problem that should be resolved with international consultations. And what was about the European security? I remember that time when Gorbachev came to Helsinki.
Exactly.
And they were speaking about
exactly.
European, the Congress of European Security.
Exactly.
It was a very good idea.
Yes.
De Gaulle started this idea after the Second World War.
De Brest à Brest.
Yes, and Gorbachev supported this idea. Mitterrand supported this idea. But when the Soviet Union was over, the western part of the Europe has forgotten about this security.
Under your American
this is not
pressure.
right at all. Germany is reunited.
Yes.
Soviet Union is crashed.
Yes.
So we should go on the security process. They do not want to. And this is not...
you feel betrayed.
Yeah, this is not gentle.
No, you feel
this
betrayed.
is not good.
Yes,
so we should think now how to construct the new European concert with the participation of Russia.
Yes, but the trouble is that nowadays it is not so much governments who are powerful, but this international banking system. And like we see in our days, they try to make bankrupt even Greece, and then so that these Anglo-Saxon banks can get hold on their primary sources. You see that very well. Mr. Putin does do his best to save at least Russian resources. I think that is admirable.
Thank you for these compliments for our government. But anyway, the problem of banking system is very complicated. It has its own history, and the banks always interfered economic and even political strategy. So I'm sure that banks participated in the so-called perestroika and the so-called new Russian Revolution, because now Russia is sick. We cannot believe in International Monetary Fund support. Never.
No.
This is a trick.
That's a trick.
This is a trick. So now Putin, you have mentioned him, and the government of Russia and his counselors, they decided to look for support in the east from China and other countries, India, to cooperate against Western banking system.
Exactly.
This is, I think this is more practical,
Yes.
at least.
Now I'd like to come back rather to your own field. We have talked about now some practical parts and geopolitical aspects, but in the spirit of archaeofuturism of our common friend Guillaume Faye, I know that you have made very interesting studies in a book that I have read here. Of the origin of our common world of gods, gods being representative of our thought, our feelings. It is this book that I will show later on more closer. Can you tell me a little bit what did you assemble in this book, apart from the beautiful illustrations of paintings of these traditional gods, which we have in common from India up till Russian house.
Thank you. Thank you for this question. Indeed, I am the author of at least 400 or 500 articles, and some of them are translated into languages, into 8 or 10 European languages. And I have published more than 30 books. This album is not just an ordinary book. This is an encyclopedia. This is an album. So it combines two ways of publishing. Album of pictures with 144 pictures of art with native Slavic and European gods, and commentaries like vocabulary, encyclopedia. So to me it is very important, because I have started to gather these images as a collector for my magazine and to myself. But indeed, I understood that these gods are the principles of our being, the principles of our culture. They represent our archetypes, archetypes of our race. So when we study this pantheon,
that is what it is, a pantheon.
As a pantheon, we enter the profound roots of our archetype.
Exactly.
This is the life of our race.
Yes. How did you come to the conclusion that our origin depends on the axioma blood before soil, geopolitics before geopolitics? What is that a precondition to save our world, our race? What is the idea?
Indeed. First, I understood it with my intuition. I never thought about race when I lived in Russia, because the majority of Russian people are Europeans. When I came to the United States, especially when I went to Washington, I understood what is black race.
Yes.
Because there is difference.
Yes.
Then I went to Paris, 30% Muslim. You come to Brussels,
yes,
more
places as well.
There are differences. This is just normal from the point of view of the nature. So, and I started to think, what is the difference? So I think that it's just normal to study racial history, racial roots, racial culture. Just not to be extremists, but just to protect our heritage.
Yes.
You are asking about blood and soil. Of course, if a white man, colonizer, come to the South Africa, he organizes white civilization, European civilization. When African or Afro-American come to Europe, he's going on, he's continuing his way of life. He's listening to the African music or Islamic music. It's just normal for him.
Yes.
For
exactly,
him.
Exactly.
But for us it is different.
Yes.
So I think that we should look for the way for protecting our worlds in a separate manner.
And
maybe in apartheid, but not in a political sphere.
No.
Cultural.
Yeah,
cultural.
But that presupposes that we must find a way in which our peoples are themselves much more conscious of their own civilization.
Of course.
Yes.
Sometimes.
And
yes.
maybe I saw here in Russia people are much more conscious with their civilization. They read more, their history,
yes.
they use more their traditional musics than in our place. So I feel like looking for an inspiration here to restore in our youth in the West little much more the idea that they live in a continuum of history and civilization.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I should tell you more that after this liberal revolution, I mean, it was liberal not only in business but in information. We have discovered our Russian history, our history. Thousands of new books has been published. We discovered the forgotten facts about the history of the middle centuries of the post-revolutionary period. So history now is in fashion. There are a lot of clubs for reconstruction, pagan societies.
This is not a kind of Aryan revolution, racist style. It has nothing to do with this.
No, I would prefer to speak about a renaissance, about a rebirth. It's not a revolution in the political sense. When I speak about Aryan world, I mean the Vedic base of the Indo-European mentality.
That is our real roots, the Vedic. Rather you dwell upon this. It's very important that people should know, also in Western Europe, that the Vedic scriptures are our very roots, isn't it?
This is a real fundament of the Indo-European civilization. When I was a student, I studied Plato, Aristotle, Hegel, and Goethe, and European thinkers. But now I prefer to study Vedic texts, especially now I read Puranas.
I do the same. Yeah.
Exactly, because they are as important to the European culture and in the European culture now as the Greek philosophers in the ancient area.
Yes.
And medieval area.
Maybe you can tell something about the the tactics and strategy of Athene, how to promote this idea among us Europeans.
Well, Athena is the goddess of wisdom.
Yes.
So, if you look at this picture,
the camera will
from my collection,
will give some impression.
This is one of the pictures of Athena, the goddess of wisdom and the clever war.
Exactly.
So she's protecting education, art, even business, war. So in the European civilization, there was a tradition like universities. Intellectuals has published magazines called Athenaeum. In Russia there were 3 Athenaeums published. And I'm the person who is continuing this tradition. Our Athenaeum has been founded 11 years ago, 10 years ago, 11 years. And I have published 10 issues annually. So we gather the leaders of intellectual circles, and we look for the future.
From all over Europe, huh?
Oh yes, we started from Russia and Slavic countries, but now from Europe and all over the world, including United States and South Africa and Australia. So why
to make
not?
a kind of alliance of
the idea is to promote new generation of thinkers. Because there are fundamental strategic problems. For example, religion, racial roots of religion, like raceology, anthropology, eugenics, World War IV. I call it World War IV. The war of the new generation.
Against the new media, the new and so on.
And so on.
Who are trying to derooting us, eh?
Yes. Because we live in the absolutely new world. And we should understand that we should protect our being from this new aggression. So, and my friends, you are one of them.
Thank you.
And I have more friends in the European countries. We are thinking how to cooperate intellectually to elaborate our strategy for the white rebirth.
Meanwhile, us, sometimes we meet problems with authorities because they take us for narrow-minded racial thinkers, which we are not. We think according to cultural lines and historical lines. What happened to you? In fact, did they try to close down Athene, the authorities here? Can you tell us something about it?
Unfortunately, there is a problem with authorities. Because just 3 or 4 years ago, we never thought that there would be problems with speaking or writing or with authorities.
Yeah,
now,
the freedom of speech.
with the freedom of speech,
Much better
never
than now.
thought. Yes, so we has written anything we wanted to. But now, for 2 or 3 years, the government starting to make strict politics with the parties, with the opposition, with so-called radicals, and so-called extremist literature. There is a law against extremism, and they try to look for some magazines, newspapers that seems to them being extremist.
Yeah.
So they have found one of my magazine and 2 or 3 publications, and have found some phrases, some so-called specialists. Because they are not specialists at all.
No.
They don't enter the sense.
No.
They just look for phrases, and they say keywords, and they say these phrases can be understood extremist.
Exactly.
Can be accepted. Can be accepted extremist. By whom? Nobody has told me. Nobody has written any letter to me that
it is thought police,
Yes,
Gedankenpolizei.
exactly.
Yes, yes.
And of course, it is a kind of inquisition.
Exactly.
Because
Exactly.
it is a very it's a pain. It is very
Yep,
bad news
Yes.
that in Russia now there is a list of the so-called extremist literature, of forbidden literature,
Yes,
and
yes,
now there are about 900 numbers. There are newspapers, some articles, even websites.
Oh, they're closing websites in our place as well. So this will continue to happen.
This
and
is
it
not
is very dangerous because we need freedom to to explore a future for our common Europe. And they put screws on our thumbs.
I think it will not help the regime, because now United States government has decided to help these illegals in the internet, and they are protecting them. Like, remember the time when Radio Liberty gathered Soviet dissidents and gave them freedom of speech. So this is a kind of provocation.
Yes.
Now they help opposition to organize. Well, but to me, the importance is to express my thoughts as an intellectual. I'm a scientist. For example, I'm speaking about the race, or I'm speaking about the Aryan tradition. They say, no, Aryan, it is a Nazist. Aryan is not Nazist. Race is not forbidden. You know what I mean? So this is a kind of, I should say, pseudo-police.
Exactly. Well, I'm so glad to have you had here in my program and to make clear to us that with all the other 3 speakers in the program, that what we are looking for is a new born Europe, known with its own roots up till India and the Vedic scriptures, and that we are far from those people who only think narrow-minded way of race in kind of in racial theories of some past dark period here in Europe.
Yes.
But that we also should know that we have to be really assertive of our European people, and that we should tell the liberals that massive immigration is not the solution to the dwindling numbers of Europeans in our continent, and that is very dangerous to have a replacement of the population. And that's why I think I was here a guest in Russia with such a tremendous long history and knowledge and wisdom how to deal with it. And I hope we will continue our contact, and I am sure I can invite you sometimes within European Union, and I hope without any problems from the authorities to dwell upon your wisdom. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Toulaev.
Mr. Alfred Vierling. I would like to thank you and your listeners and our listeners for this very interesting interview, and to tell that there is a society, it is called Euro Russia, which is founded by our friend Chris Roman.
Yes, who made
and we,
this possible.
yes, and
this meeting.
we already are cooperating with him
Exactly.
to construct our pan-European, or as we call it, Euro-European unity. Now it is a dream. It was a dream, now it is a project. There will be a cooperation, there will be organization, and this way, step by step, we build our project. So we should live free, in freedom, we should protect our qualities and values, and I do appreciate our European friends that are interested in Russia, that they come to us, and we'll do our, and we'll construct our brotherhood. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much so far.
Mhm.